Suns have fired Frank Vogel after just one season.
Yeah, I won't provide context. Whenever I provide context, it'll be looked at as an excuse, so I'll just be better next year.
We have all the things, and so how fixable is it? And I mean, if I read the media, I would think we have a lot of problems.
The Phoenix Suns are just progressively getting worse and worse. The whole team seems absolutely miserable. Matt Ishbia completely pillaged this team of all assets, and now it seems like they found their scapegoat for the year. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Turned $25 into $225, $35 into $105 the night before, and now PrizePicks is giving us another free square. All Caitlin Clark needs is 1 point in her WNBA debut, and her square will hit. I give away all my picks for free on my Instagram story at TheFlightMike. You guys have been hitting me up in the DMs, letting me know how well it's been going for you guys. And right now, you'll get up to a $100 deposit match when you use my promo code FlightMike when you sign up for PrizePicks, or just click in the link in the description down below. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? At the conclusion of the Phoenix Suns season, when they lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Kevin Durant was asked about this team's outlook, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I won't provide context. Whenever I provide context, it'll be looked at as an excuse, so I'll just be better next year.
And I honestly feel so bad for Kevin Durant. He just wants to hoop for a contender. He just wants to be carried to another championship until he feels like he did nothing to contribute to that championship, so he could go to a new team to build a brand new contender, only for them to fire his head coach so Kevin Durant could handpick his next head coach, only for him to say that Steve Nash was the wrong head coach 2 years later, and then demand a trade out of Brooklyn. And ultimately, the craziest part of all is Kevin Durant got his wish. He got traded to the Phoenix Suns, and I felt like the fit with the Phoenix Suns was fantastic. Monty Williams was a few seasons removed from winning Coach of the Year and taking the Phoenix Suns to the Western Conference Finals. Chris Paul is probably the greatest pure point guard that Kevin Durant's ever played with, and Devin Booker was the perfect scoring complement to Kevin Durant, and DeAndre Ayton was a fantastic pick and roll partner for Chris Paul. Although I felt like it was kind of risky to go all in and trade for Kevin Durant, because the Suns had to give up Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and 4 future first-round picks and a pick swap in order to get a player who was in his mid-30s and was a few seasons removed from an Achilles tear. I could understand why they did it at the time. It was very reasonable to suggest that if Kevin Durant worked out for 2 years or 3 years with the Phoenix Suns, this team could have been a contender. But in my opinion, Matt Ishbia may have gone a little bit too far, because he felt like he needed more than just Kevin Durant. In the offseason, Matt Ishbia traded Chris Paul for Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal held a no trade clause, bear in mind, and all the Suns had to give up was their draft control until 2030, which is absolute insanity if you think about it. Since the Phoenix Suns were so devoid of depth outside of Bradley Beal, DeAndre Ayton, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, they traded DeAndre Ayton so they could get at least some additional pieces around Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. And on top of that, they fired Monty Williams and brought in Frank Vogel. Now, what Matt Ishbia essentially did was take away the primary playmaker from his team, although of course he was getting old, and replaced him with a scorer that is a secondary playmaker in Bradley Beal that has had trouble staying healthy. Bradley Beal historically has occupied the same exact role as Devin Booker, so you pretty much have 3 really solid ISO scorers on your team. This sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Only the worst part is, as opposed to the Brooklyn Nets big 3 only playing 16 games with each other in totality, the Phoenix Suns were fairly healthy this past year, and ultimately they got swept in the first round. And this was very unfortunate for Bradley Beal, because he famously said that he's never been swept a day in his life, and he'll be damned if that happens.
I'll be damned, huh?
Hey, bro.
Ultimately, when you have no room to fix this team, if you're stuck with the team that you have, you can't make any trades to improve the team around you, you really don't have a choice but to fire your head coach. And once this clip of Bradley Beal brushing off Frank Vogel's hand came out, then the writing was really on the wall for Frank Vogel. Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with Frank Vogel, the head coach. I think he'd be a great assistant, primarily because he's proven to be pretty solid defensively, but I don't think any head coach would be able to make these pieces work together. Fundamentally, the pairing of Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker is flawed. The Suns had one of the worst fourth quarter net ratings in the entire NBA this past year. Towards the end of the season, Phoenix was outscored by opponents by 14.1 points per 100 possessions. That's more than double than the next worst team in the Miami Heat. In total, the Phoenix Suns had been scored by 217 points in the fourth quarter. By contrast, they've outscored their opponents by 427 points in the other three quarters combined. If you remember, this was a huge storyline for the Phoenix Suns throughout the year. The fact that Kevin Durant was even struggling in the fourth quarter. And some people pointed the blame finger at Frank Vogel's lack of ability of creating offense for this team. And when you have Bradley Beal, who's coming off of his worst season to date, on a horrible contract that is viewed as the most toxic contract in the NBA, where he is currently going on his third season of a 5-year, $251 million contract extension that he signed in the 2022 offseason, and then even on top of that has a no trade clause, you're pretty much stuck with this big three, unless if you decide to trade Kevin Durant or Devin Booker. And while there were rumors of Kevin Durant going to the Miami Heat, tell me if you've heard that one before, ultimately Matt Ishbia squashed those rumors by giving the most delusional press conference we've ever seen from ownership.
Ask the other 29 GMs. 26 of them would trade their whole team for our whole team and our draft picks and everything as is. Like, the house is not on fire. We're in great position. It's not hard to fix. It's not like we're like, hey, we don't have enough talent to win a championship. We have enough talent to win a championship.
Yeah, Matt. Everybody wants to be in the same exact position that the Phoenix Suns are in. You're completely correct about that.
So obviously, the fact that there's a big three that fundamentally does not work well with each other, that has no depth at all whatsoever, that is exceeding the luxury tax second apron, and has the third highest payroll in the NBA with no assets at all to trade whatsoever until 2031 isn't the problem. So what is the problem for the Phoenix Suns? What's it going to take for this team to win a championship in one of the most deepest Western conferences we've seen in years? No, I mean seriously. David Griffin even said it himself.
That's something the other day that I think is true. It's the first time a conference has had 10 teams above 500 at the same time. Our record this year would have been good for third in the West last year, would have been good for third in the East this year. It's a very competitive conference. And so I think whereas in the past we've always erred on the side of continuity, and our takeaway has always been, let's see this group healthy. I think we've seen it enough.
Currently, you have this loaded Western Conference, and then you have teams that aren't even in the playoffs this year that are probably going to improve next year. Do you think the Golden State Warriors are going to stagnate? The Houston Rockets were making a huge run towards the end of their season. The Memphis Grizzlies should get Ja Morant next year and have a lottery pick to pair with that. And then you have the San Antonio Spurs, who at any point could boom as a result of Victor Wembanyama's greatness. So it's a very reasonable concern that the Phoenix Suns are currently 6th in the Western Conference, have no way to improve their roster, and the worst part of all is their owner thinks they're delusional enough to be better. So at that point, all you really could do is fire your head coach. And we were prepared for this because Shams Charania actually released an article the moment the Phoenix Suns got swept, titled, "What Went Wrong? What's Next for Frank Vogel? Big Three and More." It opens up by saying Frank Vogel entered the home locker room at Footprint Center and lit into his team after his Phoenix Suns had fallen into a 35-4 hole en route to a loss to the LA Clippers on April 9th. The head coach yelled so much that his voice could be heard outside the locker room. There was only one problem. On this night, Suns players weren't buying it. The outburst seemed forced and out of character in their eyes. It continued at the next day's shoot-around in Los Angeles, Vogel tearing into the Suns before that night's road win over the Clippers. Vogel's eruption left players rolling their eyes. Sources briefed on the matter told The Athletic. One player even told The Athletic he had to keep from laughing. Remember, less than a year ago, Matt Ishbia Media hired Frank Vogel on a 5-year, $31 million deal to replace Monty Williams after the Suns had lost to eventual champion Denver in the Western Conference semifinals. The decision to move on from Williams had its merits, as every sector of the Suns organization had lost faith in him. In his first season with the Detroit Pistons this past year, Williams didn't fare much better. Frank Vogel gave us this bit where the Suns were going to be scrappy on defense, but ironically, they were defeated by a team that was, well, scrappy on defense. And now it seems like the Phoenix Suns don't really have much of a choice but to fire Frank Vogel. And according to Shams Charania, they're going to do just that. According to Shams, Frank Vogel is out as the head coach of the Phoenix Suns. The news release gives us this load of crap that I'll even read for you guys, saying that the Phoenix Suns announced today that the team has dismissed Frank Vogel as head coach. As we said at the press conference on May 1st, team leadership, including myself, Josh Bartelstein, and ownership would be looking across basketball operations to determine what changes needed to be made. After a thoughtful review of the season, we concluded that we needed a different head coach for our team. We appreciate Frank's hard work and commitment. We are here to win a championship, and last season was way below our expectations. We will continue to evaluate our operation and make the necessary changes to reach our championship caliber goals. We all take accountability, and it's my job, along with Josh and ownership, to build a championship team. The problem is there's no way you could build a championship team. You have no assets. The only thing you really could do is blow up the roster. But what's the point in trying to rebuild if you don't have draft control until 2030? It's really a shame. This Phoenix Suns team was completely loaded with assets, and they just traded it for the wrong pieces. The Bradley Beal trade screwed this team for the foreseeable future. The Kevin Durant trade at the time made a lot of sense, but the trades on top of it is what ruined everything. And as Chris Mannix said, smart organizations hire good coaches and stand by them. Michael Malone had 9 years in Denver. Mark Daigneault had 4 years in OKC. Same for Chris Finch in Minnesota. Jason Kidd has 3 years in Dallas, and he just got an extension. And bad organizations scapegoat them. Let me know in the comment section down below if you think a head coach could save the Phoenix Suns. What coach would even want to coach the Phoenix Suns? Because I feel like no matter what coach they get, they're going to be in huge trouble. Currently, it looks like the Phoenix Suns are eyeing Coach Mike Budenholzer. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this, man. Especially if you're a Suns fan. I think things are about to get a lot worse for this team, and a part of me just feels bad because Kevin Durant is going out sad once again as a result of this. I like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.